Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're doing part 201 of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we took a look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today, we've got a fish, we've got a bird, and we've got quite a few extinct and modern mammals, so we've got quite an interesting assortment there. We've got about 4 extinct animals in this one, so you paleo fans will be definitely enjoying this one. So we're going to be starting off with a fish by Jaquatics, who's kind of back with making some more fishies after the last few ones he kind of missed out. But we've got here a really cool tropical fish. It's quite common in the pet trade. We've got the lyre-tail ananthus. So let's have a look at one of these guys. It's probably easy to actually go in here and find one. Let's have a look at you there. There's got to be one in the water somewhere. Oh, come on, dude. And they're all going out into the water. Oh, speed it up a bit. There we are, there's one. You're off swimming doing your thing. Really beautiful little guy, isn't he? Let's see if we can zoom in and get a really good look at this guy. This as far as it'll let me zoom in. Anyway, so this is the sea goldie, or in this is called the lyre-tail ananthus. Pseudoanthus squidopinus. It's got quite a few different names, so I'm not going to go into all of them. But these guys are a species of marine ray-finned fish in the Ananthus family, in the subfamily Ananthidae, part of the family Serenidae, which includes the grouper and the sea basses. And they do have quite a wide distribution around the Indo-Pacific, and they are also found in the aquarium trade. So in terms of their range, it can be found from the western Indian Ocean, including the Red Sea, and in the Pacific Ocean as far east as Japan and southeastern Australia, though they are absent in the Persian Gulf and Oman. So the species shows quite marked sexual dimorphism. So this is a male. So the males can get to about 15 centimeters long, with frusicolors and an elongated third ray going up on there, the dorsal fin, and then the red patch on the pectoral fin, and elongated margins on the tail. So let's see if we can find ourselves a female. Let's see. That's probably a good idea to talk about it. That's a female. And you can see some of the differences here on the females. So that's a good contrast. So the female is up to about 7 centimeters long, or about 2 inches, while the male is about 2.7 inches, while the male is about 5.9 inches. Orange gold in colour. You can see that kind of beautiful colour in there, with the violet and gold, violet streak on its eyes and the gold on the pectoral fins and things like that. So that's quite cool, isn't it? I think that's quite cool. So the Midas benny is actually another species that goes through a yellow coloration phase to mimic the sea goldie, so they are kind of mimicked as well. And in terms of, you can see the male and the female kind of comparison there. The sea goldie primarily feeds on zooplankton. Like other insects, they are polygynous hermaphrodites. So the technical term, let's see if we can find another one swimming out here. Gotta be one in the water somewhere. Oh, there's one. This is a male. Yeah, that was like a male. Oh, the dog's come. Hey, dog. Hello. So they are polygynous hermaphrodites. So the male will retain a harem of about 5 to 10 females. But when the male dies or leaves, the largest and most dominant female will undergo hormonal changes to become, and physical changes to become the harem male. So they basically succeed to becoming the next male. So a very similar thing is seen in clownfish. If you've probably heard it, if you've heard of that before, you've probably heard of it in clownfish. But these guys do a very similar thing. So these changes can take several weeks or months to complete, and then spawning will occur in sunset between December and February in the Red Sea. And in terms of habitat, they tend to live in coral outcrops, in clear lagoons, patch reefs, and steep slopes at a depth of about 35 meters. Often in the company of Chromis darmidida, and they often form very large schools above the reef as well. So yeah, another really cool little species of fish that we get to talk about. I like that we get to go through all these cool new species, so let's carry on. I don't know what's going on there. Alright. There we are. My mouse has been a bit weird with it lately. I pulled the plug out and it's improved, but it kind of... Oh, there we go, there we go. So here is done by Jaquatics. Really awesome job. And next we've got the Iberian eagle owl. Here's our bird for the pack, who's done by Great Cakes Mods, who's actually done most of the mods for this mod spotlight today, which is kind of standard at the moment, but still awesome to see regardless. So let's have a look at the Iberian eagle owl. Really, really beautiful, isn't she? So the Iberian eagle owl is a subspecies of the eagle owl. I'll go through the specific subspecies first, and then I'll talk about a little bit more about the general behavior and things like that as we get into it. So the Eurasian eagle owl is considered one of the largest species of owl, and there's about 12 different subspecies found across kind of Eurasia. They've got quite a wide range. And as I mentioned, the 12 different subspecies, and they live in all sorts of different habitats, such as woodlands, areas, and pretty much everywhere as well. So they're quite dispersed in that in the world. And there is some subspecies have been split into their own species, so that might happen for some of these subspecies in the future. We don't really know. Like the Faroe eagle owl was considered a subspecies of the Eurasian eagle owl. Some others may be, eventually put in. But this subspecies is bubo hypinus, which is known as the Spanish or Iberian eagle owl. This subspecies mainly occurs in the Iberian Peninsula and can be found in a majority of Spain and scattered spots of Portugal. They also inhabited, at least historically, wooded areas of the Atlas Mountains. I don't know what's on with you there. So they would have lived around the Atlas Mountains in northern Africa, making it the only subspecies of eagle owl to breed in Africa. But that population is thought to have gone extinct, sadly. In terms of life history, it's actually one of the most extensive studied subspecies of eagle owl, but tends to be somewhat lighter, more greyish colour, and generally lighter streaked and a paler belly. And in males, the wing chord length can be from 40 to 45 centimetres or 16 to 18 inches, and females are about 445 to 485 millimeters, or about 17 to 19 inches. Wingspan in the subspecies can vary between 131 to 168 centimeters, or between 4'4" and 5'6", averaging about 5 feet wingspan. Is interesting as well. And adult males are typically from Spain weigh about 1.22 to 1.9 kilograms, or 2.7 to 4.2 pounds, and average about 1.6 or about 3.5 pounds, while females weigh about 1.75 to 2.49, or about 3 to 5 pounds, and averaging about 2 kilograms. So that's quite cool in that regard. So in terms of the habitat, as I mentioned, they have quite varied habitats. As I mentioned, these guys did live in the Atlas Mountains, but across their whole range, they could be found pretty much everywhere, excluding the humid rainforests of Southeast Asia and the really high Arctic tundras. So beside the really extreme closed-in wet habitats and really extreme open dry habitats, they can be found pretty much everywhere in between. So quite varied in that regard. And in terms of behavior, they are largely nocturnal, like most other owl species, and actively focused its first few hours hunting after sunset and the last few hours before sunrise. And the northern stretches of its range, partial diurnal behavior has been observed as well. So it's kind of a little bit neither here nor there. Vocal activity is almost entirely confined to the colder months, with vocal activity through December mainly for territorial purposes. And vocalizations in a Spanish study no sooner than 29 minutes after sunset and ends no longer than 55 minutes after sunrise. So they make those kind of really distinct, resonant, owl sounds, which is quite interesting. And they actually have quite a deep call, and it's more impressive than other species of owl, which is quite interesting. And there's actually an entire dietary biology thing that they made for these guys, but they've got a pretty varied diet. They'll feed on pretty much anything smaller than them, smaller birds, rabbits, and they even hang out on cultivated land as well, especially like in areas and hares. So pretty much everything they'll feed that's smaller than them. They have a whole wiki about it, which is a little bit silly, but anyway. So territorial. They will defend territories from other eagle owls year round, but they kind of peak their calling around October to February, with territory sizes being similar to the great horned owls, average about 15 to 80 kilometers squared, about 5 to 30 miles squared. And these territories are established by the male eagle owl, who select the highest points in the territory of which to sing. So that's quite interesting as well. In terms of breeding, we'll have a look at the cute little babies when we get on to breeding. So let's have a look at these cute little fluffy guys. Look at that little guy, little goober. So in terms of nest, the male actually selects breeding sites and advertises their potential with the female, and then kind of flies them and needs out a small depression to kind of, make the nest. And like all other owls, they do not build nests or add materials, but nest on the surface of the materials already present, so they don't really add things, but they prefer to nest on rocks and boulders, or sometimes in gullies and slopes and things like that. would be particularly attractive. And in more densely forested areas, they have been recorded nesting on the ground, often among roots of trees, under large bushes, or under fallen trees, sometimes. And even some areas where they're usually at the base of pines. So they're very generalist in where they like to, make their nests. But in terms of parental behaviour, the male eagle owl alone hunts until the young are about 4 to 5 weeks old, and the female spends all her time brooding on the nest. At this point, the female rarely resumes hunting for both herself and the young, and thus provides a greater range of food for the young as the female's a bit bigger. But so we see in contrast to the species' highly territorial nature, there's one verified case of polygamy in Germany, which is quite interesting as well, where there was male and 2 females. They kind of they all cooperated to have a breeding, to have chicks, which is quite interesting as well. In terms of their development, eggs are normally laid in intervals of about 3 days and incubated only by the female, and laying generally begins in late winter and is brought food at the nest by her mate. A single clutch of white eggs is laid, and each egg is about 56 to 73 millimeters long by 44 by 53 millimeters in width, so between kind of 2.9 and 2.09 inches, so very round eggs as well. The eggs are only slightly, they are similar in size. The eggs are only slightly larger than those of snowy owls and the dominant subspecies of the great horned owl, and a similar size to spot-head eagle owls and Buxton's fish owls. Although they're noticeably larger than Indian eagle owls or Faroe eagle owls, which is interesting as well. And its higher clutch size in the Western Mediterranean actually suggests that there's the presence of lagomorphs in the diet in the area may have actually provide higher nutritional value than other prey. So definitely the Iberian eagle owl that you see here is definitely something that would really benefits from all the rabbits in Spain and Portugal and all that. I don't want to get another one of... Oh, why are you not clicking for me? I'll click you then. Oh, there you are. That's what I want to click on. Have a look at the different colour. Really beautiful, and Great Cakes does a great job. Anyway, in Spain, incubation lasts from about mid-January to mid-March, and the early nesting period is from late May to early April, or late March to early April. Fledgling and post-fledgling dependence can range from mid-April to mid-August, and territorial courtship at any time thereafter. And other period of the beginning of the juvenile dispersal and egg laying from kind of September to early January. And it's the same kind of in France, but different areas because they have such a wide range and such different range of habitats and things like that. It can sometimes vary depending on the time of year, things like that. The first egg hatches after about 31 to 36 days of incubation, and there's an average about a day apart of each other. Like all owls, unless they're open, they typically have a mottled grey pattern, as you kind of saw there. And as we mentioned, the body mass does increase 14 times over the 5 days to 60 days old, so they actually put on a lot of weight because of the male, and then eventually the female will be bringing them the food. And many nests attempt to produce 2 fledglings, indicating that sibling side is not as common in other birds of prey, which is interesting. Apparently, the point at which chicks venture out the nest depends on the location. Some areas, if they usually want out the nest at 5 or as late as 7 weeks, but sometimes as early as 20 to 25 days. So depending on where the nest is. There's usually a nest in southern France that had a mean number of about 1.6 fledglings as well. But talking about kind of other things other than their breeding, in terms of the eagle owl, they have a very wide range across both Europe and Asia. And the population, the whole world, is estimated to be about between 250,000 and 2.5 million birds. So they are definitely considered least concern. So they're quite a wide, abundant bird and doing quite well. And they're one of the longest lived owls as well. So the oldest one's about 27 years old. And they may have survived up to 68 years in zoos collections, which is very interesting. But they do suffer a lot from human mortality, such as a lot of things that we do to impact them. So a lot of things due to collision, like electrocution, or untamed individuals found dead due to human activities. Collisions with vehicles. There's a big issues as well. Collisions with vehicles and electrocution is kind of the big one. And they also were considered a threat to game species historically, and that has caused some local extinctions of eagle owls, but now that's kind of become not a really big issue as it was anymore, and now they're starting to kind of come back, and there have been introductions and conservation efforts to help protect these guys as well. and even in Great Britain. They once occurred naturally in Great Britain, but disappeared about 10,000 years ago. And there have been some, maybe some eagle owls around the place, but they're thinking about introducing them and things like that. And they're a highly opportunistic predator, so they pretty much hunt anything of any right size. They take whatever prey that's locally common, and actually maybe take a large number of species considered harmful to human interests. So they'll often, such as rats, mice, and pigeons. But eagle owls will often take rare and endangered species as well. So things like they'll hunted Russian desman, Iberian desman, ground squirrels, water voles, minks, polecats, geese, Egyptian vultures, greater spotted eagles, Iberian eagles, and things like that. So both endangered and rare species, and rare and endangered, but also quite common species. So they're both, they're indiscriminate on what they eat. They eat pretty much everything. So they're both really good and really bad. If you're trying to conserve something and there's eagle owls in the area, that's kind of a bit difficult. But they do have, being one of the most powerful species of living species of owl, they are quite capable of killing all sorts of different prey. So they kill lots of rodents and lagomorphs and even hedgehogs, and they will occasionally kill like roe deer fawns and things like that, and lots of birds. So they're very generalized in their diet. So that's quite interesting and very good to hear about them. So let's have a look at. We'll have a quick look at the Zoopedia, because why not? So Otis Mangabey, that's the Iberian eagle owl. No. We already kind of mentioned those. Tail thin position when allows them to upright stance with plumage. Compress closely, may stay tightly to a tree trunk that allows them to aid camouflage. So that's interesting as well. And they don't have interspecies enrichment on anyone. But yeah, really, really cool. I do love a nice eagle owl. Very, very cool to see this species in the game. Or subspecies. So nice to see other ones in the future. We get to talk about them. But yeah, a lot to talk about the species I tried to condense down. There was even a whole page on like what they eat, so I had to condense it down quite a bit. But I hope that was enough for you guys. There's definitely more reading if you want to work on Wikipedia or whatever. But anyway, we're going to move on to another species. So that one is done by Great Cakes Mod. Next up, we've got by Mega Kebab, who's really been actually improving their game quite a bit. We have got the collared Mangabey. It's another really cool species of monkey. So the collared Mangabey, or Cladosictis Tunacorus, also called the red-capped Mangabey or the white-collared Mangabey. These guys are a species of Old World monkey, and formerly included in the sooty Mangabey as a subspecies, but are now considered their own species. Is that actually, what's that, an adult? Cool, I just want to make sure that was an adult we're looking at. Very, very cool mod. In terms of its description, these guys have grey fur covering most of their body, but common name refers to the colours around the head and neck. It has a prominent chestnut red cap, given the name the red cap, and its white colour is also called the white collared or the collared Mangabey. Its ears are black, and it has striking white eyelids, which some refer to as the four-eyed monkey. It has a dark grey tail that extends the length of the body and often has a white tip, and it has long molars and large incisors. And the average body mass for captive individuals range from about 9 to 10 kilograms, or about 20 to 22 pounds for males, and about 7.5 to 8.6 kilograms for females, or 17 to 19 pounds. With head to body length being between 47 and 67 centimeters in males, and 45 to 60 centimeters, or 18 to 24 inches in females. So in terms of habitat, they are found in coastal swamp, mangroves, and valley forests from western Nigeria, east to south of Cameroon, through Equatorial Guinea and Gabon, and onto the Gabon-Congo border by the Atlantic shore. And the collared Mangabey lives in large groups of about 10 to 35 individuals. That includes several males. And vocal communication is in the form of cackles and barks, and they're used to keep the group in contact and signal their position to others. The groups have a diet of typically fruits and seeds, but also eat leaves, foliage, flowers, invertebrates, mushrooms, dung, and gum. And the collared Mangabey has no defined breeding season, as it reaches sexual maturity between 5 to 7 years of age, and has an average gestation about 170 days. As we have a look, I think there's a cute little baby over here we can have a look at, because look at him, a little cute little guy. So in terms of threats, it is estimated that 3,000 collared Mangabeys are hunted on the cross-Senegal-Bacana coastal forest for the bushmeat trade every year, on in 2006. And they are considered endangered due to habitat loss and the hunting for bushmeat. So they are considered, got to be careful about them. You know, they're a concern for extinction. It's not a really beautiful species, and I love getting all these cool little monkeys that they get to make. And Mega Kebab did a good job with this one. I really do like it. Really, really awesome. So that's the last of non-Great Cakes mods for today. We've got a lot of interesting mods going on as well. So let's carry on. Next up, we've got a few extinct species from now on. The rest of all extinct species. So Great Cakes has created this mod here. This is called Cladosictis. A really, really cool little guy here. So this is Great Cakes. Its name means branch weasel. So it's an extinct genus of South American Metatherian. So Metatherians are kind of a really interesting group. Metatherian is the mammalian clade that includes all mammals that are closely related to marsupials and placentals. So it's not a marsupial, but it's more closely related to a kangaroo than it is to a person. So it's kind of like the in-between. And they were actually quite a diverse group as well. So they are kind of include the outgroups of marsupials. And they're from Patagonia, Argentina, and Chile. So they're from pretty much all South America. So Cladosictis was a fox-like creature and was roughly about 80 centimeters long, or about 2.6 feet long. And it probably hunted for eggs and small animals in the low undergrowth, using its low posture for cover. And it has sharp teeth and slicing carnassials, which are actually convergent, with carnivorous carnassials, so it evolved multiple times in mammals. Their teeth are quite similar to those of carnivorans, though they're unrelated. So it's a great example of convergent evolution in this species. And there's not too much I can actually say about it, but we'll have a look at what else we can spot in terms of information. Metatherian is a marsupial, mammal clade. That includes all mammals closely related to mammals and their marsupials and other placentals. South American Metatherians include both the ancestors of extant marsupials as well as the extinct sparassodonts, which are major predators in South American ecosystems during the Cenozoic up until their extinction. If you know things like Taeniolabis or Bora hyena, those are sparassodonts. Its name means branch weasel. I don't know. Yeah, this guy is considered sparassodont as well. Branch weasel probably hunted the year. We mentioned that, even though the group's unrelated, and they've got no species enrichment. But yeah, this is a very interesting, underrated little guy. And there's a few different species of Cladosictis. This is Lutaturus. This is kind of what it's considered. But yeah, another really cool species that we get to talk about. And I know that Great Cakes mod does a really good job at reconstructing a lot of these species as well, so it's nice to see them give a realistic good look at them, because a lot of people that reconstruct extinct animals, they seem to have a weird disconnect of how they reconstruct modern and extinct animals compared to each other, but hers is pretty consistent, and she does a really good job. I really appreciate most of her prehistoric reconstructions. I'd say actually all of them. They mostly all look really good, and it's really nice to see someone put that same kind of effort to make these extinct animals look realistic, in my opinion. But yeah, we've got more Great Cakes mods to go on about now. I don't know what's going on with my thing again. It worked and now it's not working. But anyway, we're going to have a look at the next species. This is Taeniolabis, another really cool one here. There we are. So another really cool one. So this is a little bit older. It's from the Paleogene. So this is right after, literally pretty much 65 to 64 million years ago. So this lived right after the great KT extinction of the dinosaurs. So these guys are an extinct genus of multituberculate. We'll get into what multituberculates are soon. So from the Paleogene of North America. So multituberculates are a really interesting group. Their names come from the multiple tubercles that appear on their teeth. They're an extinct order of rodent-like mammals with a fossil record that spans about 130 million years. So they first appeared during the Middle Jurassic, and they reached their peak during the Paleogene Late Cretaceous, where things like, this guy lived, Taeniolabis. But then they eventually declined from the mid-Paleogene, and then the last kind of records of them come from the late Eocene. And they were the most diverse order of Mesozoic mammals, with more than 200 species known that range from mouse-sized to beaver-sized. And yeah, very interesting animals as well. And they had a bunch of different niches, such as burrowing or squirrel-like arboreal ones or hopper ones. But they're usually placed in crown mammals outside of either the two main groups, the therians and the monotremes. But they're usually closer to therians, so placentals and marsupials, than monotremes. And they're considered to be closely related to things like Gondwanatheres, like, Adelphitherium, which I covered not too long ago, and other things like that in Alatheria. So these guys are a member of the Taeniolabidae, which is a superfamily of multituberculates that are known for their highly derived teeth and a short, wide snout with a highly, blocky head. These teeth modifications suggest that these guys were herbivores and may have resulted in a rapid diversification of angiosperms. So they may have become herbivores because of that rapid diversification of angiosperms that happened at the very end of the Cretaceous, which would have created opportunities for novel specializations in herbivores. This species, Taioensis, which is the one that's described here as well, and is the only species in the genus, is elongate, has an elongate, genially curved cochlear canal and elange vestibule, and they are the largest known multituberculate mammal, and well as the largest eleutherian mammal, and they got to about 34 kilograms, or about 75 pounds, which is an animal. For a mammal of the time, it was considered gigantic. We didn't have elephants and whales yet, so and most of the big things would have been dinosaurs or other large, reptiles. So at the time, this was considered a huge mammal. And species under the genus name have been known by other names, but Tabula seems to be around frequently enough and has a very limited time to use as an index fossil. So it is found pretty much 65, 64 million years ago, so a couple million years right after the end of the Cretaceous. So in terms of its history, it is within the suborder of Clonodonta and the member of the subfamily Taeniolabidae, and was first named by Edward Drinker Cope in 1882, and species have been placed within the genus Captopilis and Polymastodon. And there's two different species. The other one is a little bit older, from Montana. It's not quite as large as Taeniolabisis, as we'll get into, but it was about 11 kilograms. This species was originally named Taeniolabis sulcatus by Cope as a type species genus, and then was later renamed to Taionensis. Known fossils of this guy come from 64 million years ago, so a couple million years right after the extinction of the dinosaurs. And has not come from the Danian Age of New Mexico and Saskatchewan, and also the Denver Formation in Colorado, so it's got quite a wide range. The species had a roughly 16 centimeter long skull, or 6-inch skull, and an average body mass of about 22 kilograms. So it got to about the same size as a beaver, though the species was actually often once considered to be much larger, up about 100 kilograms, the size of a sheep, basing on the body mass of, they extrapolated that size from its huge teeth. But however, improved analyses and realization that teeth were extremely robust and kind of disprove that. So it made a much smaller estimate, but still a really large animal for anything out of the Mesozoic. Like the largest Mesozoic mammals, the largest one we have is probably like about half the size of this. So it is shows that they got quite big. We had other really cool species that we get to talk about. Some cool extinct animals. So let's have a look at the Zoopedia. Let's see what else we can find of these guys. The species was there. We mentioned that one of the first Mesozoic mammals. Vertebrates have a cranial and dental anatomy superficially similar to those of rodents such as mice and rats, with cheek teeth separated from their chisel-like front teeth in a wide tooth gap, the stemma. So it's a great example of convergent evolution. So that's another really cool one there. That's another cool species that we've got to talk about. But now we're getting into big Pleistocene animals that we like talking about. So we've got two species of lions that we get to talk about that are related to each other. But we're going to get started with one that I've already covered before, but this is a Great Cakes version of it. So we're going to talk about that one, and then we're going to talk about the new one. So here we've got the cave lion, or the steppe lion. Is their other name? The Eurasian cave lion. So these guys are an extinct species of Panthera that were native to Eurasia and northwestern North America during the Pleistocene. And genetic analysis has revealed that they are related to, they are closely related, they are genetically distinct to modern lions, with the two species diverging about 500,000 years ago. So the earliest fossils of P. spelaea either belong to Panthera fossilaris, which we'll get into next, or the subspecies Panthera spelaea fossilaris, come from about 700,000 years ago, and is also believed to be closely related to the American lion, another one we've already covered as well. So in terms of the history, in 1774, in the Zulithahol cave near Bulgaria, they actually found the fossil of these guys. In 1810, a fossil skull was given in the cave. It was called Felis cypleus. So it basically just meant, big cave cat, but, was eventually put in Panthera. And they found its morphology more similar to those of lions, tigers, and jaguars, and then suggested P. spelaea was closer affinities to the modern lion. And, that's kind of how we agreed as well. And genetics have actually confirmed that. So analyses of cave lion mitochondrial genomes actually confirm this hypothesis. There was debates whether it was closer related to lions or tigers and things like that. But this genetics did totally suggest that they are closest relative of the modern lion. In 2001, a subspecies Panthera versionigi was kind of proposed from 7 specimens from the Yukon. That was supposed to be different, but it seems that the Beringian population is actually a distinct subspecies of the Eurasian cave lion. So there's 2 different subspecies. There's kind of the Panthera spelaea, which is the Eurasian one, and the Beringian one is Venushangi. So in terms of these guys, the first lion-like pantherines kind of evolved in Africa about 1.7 to 1.2 million years ago, and they diverged around the end of the early Pleistocene and beginning of the Mesopliocene, and gave rise to the species Panthera fossilaris, which we are going to talk about soon. The often oldest widely accepted fossils of fossilaris about 700,000, 600,000 years old, from England, and with potentially even older fossils from Western Siberia that could be about 1 million years old. And the taxonomy is a little bit weird between fossilaris and spelaea. Some consider it as a subspecies, some consider its own species, but recent nuclear evidence suggests that European fossil lions and modern lions split about 500,000 years ago, and they haven't bred much since. So the arrival of Panthera spelaea, or fossilaris, in Europe kind of caused a big turnover. So changes in the carnivore guild, they were kind of the extinction of things like Pachychordata and Megatherion, which was a giant hyena and a saber-toothed cat, respectively. Following the arrival as well, there was the Homotherium and the European jaguar, Panthera cordonensis, became much rarer. These guys kind of like they had a big impact on these guys as well. And there are specimens actually intermediate between P. fossilaris and late Pleistocene spelaea that have been referred to by quote-unquote subspecies as well. But it's not really true, but it seems to be like being changed into a smaller one. And mitochondrial DNA shows that the American lion is actually a sister group of late Pleistocene spelaea that likely rose from an early population of P. spelaea that got into America and became the American cave lion, or just the American lion. But anyway, we'll carry on. So cave paintings of cave lions have been discovered, dated between 15,000 and 17,000 years old, and they have been drawn with they depict them going together, and they have been drawn with a scrotum without a mane, so it seems that this species either lacked a mane or had very small manes. Early members of the cave lions are assigned to fossilaris, which are quite a bit larger, as we'll get into, but these ones are kind of considered to be more in line with modern lions. The late Pleistocene spelaea that we're talking about here was still notably smaller than these guys, but still large relative to modern cats. They have estimated length of about 2 to 2.1 meters, or 6.6 to 6.9 feet. Shoulder height about 1 to 1.2 meters, or 3.6 to 3.9 feet respectively. And it shows they have a progressive size reduction over time upon its extinction, with the last player populations being considerable in size to modern lions. So, with even some being as small as 90 kilograms. But, some of the larger ones would have been, spelaea would have been comparable in size to modern lions. They also have a relatively longer and narrow muzzle compared to extant lions, with a strong zygomatic arch and canastral teeth having a slightly different cusp to them. And like modern lions, the females are smaller than the males. And compared to fossilaris, they had they differed by having larger incisors, more narrow and flattened canines, and things like that as well. That's interesting. And actually, hair was found in 2016 of these guys, suggested these guys were actually quite similar in colour to a modern lion, although slightly lighter. Though in addition, they had a very dense undercoat, comprised of yellowish-white downy hair as well. It was just seemed to be an adaptation to living in cooler climates compared to, your tropical African lions. So in terms of habitat, these guys had quite a contiguous population. They had a very large range. They had a contiguous population across the Mammoth Steppe, from Western Europe to northwestern North America, and are widely distributed from the Iberian Peninsula all across Europe, into even Britain as well, in the Ural Mountains, and even in China, Korea, and into the Bering Land Bridge, into the Yukon, and potentially even Alberta. as well. So that's quite a wide range where they lived in open steppe habitats, commonly known as the mammoth steppe, as they full of mammoths and other large species of big hairy mammals. So have a look at the females as we get a chance. Let's have a look. Really got a chance to look at him. So here's a female here. P. splayer was one of the keystone species of the mammoth steppe, being one of the apex predators, and lived alongside grey wolves, cave hyenas, and brown bears. Large amounts of bones belonging to Espalea were excavated in caves, whose bones of cave hyenas, cave bears, and Paleolithic artifacts have been found. And despite their common name, they probably only infrequently ever used caves, and were present in regions where there were no caves. Some of these accumulations may have been attributed to confrontations between cave lions and cave hyenas over carcasses, or remains, have been transported into the den. Isotopic analysis of bone collagen taken from Europe and East Beringia suggests that reindeer was quite a common part of their diet, and also seem to have blatantly preyed on cubs of cave bears, while adults may be targeted less occasionally because, it's an adult bear. Isotopic analyses of other European specimens suggest they had a diet of things like wild horse, woolly mammoth, and cave bears of those individuals, and even sought out hibernating bears potentially as a food source, and bite marks of the bone of straight-tusked elephants in Germany suggest they may have been a result of scavenging cave lions. But other things they would have hunted were giant deer like megaloceros, red deer, muskox, aurochs, wisent, steppe bison, and potentially young woolly rhino. And they likely competed for prey in the ecosystem from cave hyenas, European leopards, brown bears, and grey wolves. And also in America, they would have dealt with Homotherium, Beringian wolves, and short-faced bears, which is interesting as well. And there has been some debate over their social behaviour. We'll have a look at the cute little babies while we talk about that. Talk about something cute, because I like looking at these cute little guys. Anyway, whether or not cave lions were gregarious like modern lions is unclear. Most recent evidence state that it is generally thought to have been solitary. Those opinions may vary. Some experts say that, like Girth, argue that cave lions live solitary and also in small family groups due to their lack of manes, which are highly important for the social hierarchy of modern lions. They have the big manes to kind of demonstrate, their social status. So, and these guys don't have manes. So they don't have those manes like they are depicted in Paleolithic art. The argument is criticised by colleagues, suggesting the emergence of group living of lions probably predates the split between cave lions and modern lions as well. On the other hand, authors argue gregariness via sexual dimorphism. So there is sexual dimorphism within canine dimensions, that cave lions had similar sexual dimorphism to lions, just they didn't have the manes. And also suggests this more extreme sexual dimorphism seen in cave lions could suggest they live in larger prides. However, there's enough evidence to say. On the contrast, they said warrant that sexual dimorphism isn't a very reliable way to determine group behaviour, as leopards are very sexual dimorphic but live a solitary lifestyle. So isotopic analyses on cave lions suggest these guys would have been solitary due to cave lions shifting their diets after the disappearance of cave hyenas. Carcasses also being into cave hyenas as well, suggesting they were a competitive disadvantage. The scattering of isotope data between individuals. Within mountain ranges high altitudes, they may have been solitary and hunting in pairs, much like today lions. Lions hunt in prides in altitudes below 1,500 meters. So it's very likely that, a lot of these upland populations with caves, those are the ones that we find, may have been more solitary, but in more open areas, like modern lions, they would have been more social, hunting, like your typical lion pride. So that's very much an interesting conclusion to me, so that seems right to me. And cave lions appear to have lived in dens during the earliest stages of life, just like modern lions, and they were really solely raised by females like most living Panthera species. They have a very interesting relationship with humans as well. They were hunted for their pelts by both Neanderthals and modern humans, and they've often made drawings and carvings of them, even a man with a lion head, which is interesting as well. So they're quite important to ancient human culture. But they did sadly go extinct at the end of the Ice Age, along with lots of other ancient megafauna. And we don't know exactly why, but its timing seems to correspond with a warming period and the collapse of the mammoth steppe ecosystem, probably with the extinction of mammoths. And the precise cause of the extinction is unclear, but it's thought to be human impact, climate change, potentially a combination of both, and things like that. in competition with other species would have definitely drove them into extinction as well. And they seem to have actually gone through a population bottleneck between 47,000 and 18,000 years ago, which could have been driven by climate instability. And there are some mummified specimens known. There's a few. There's a well-preserved mature cave lion found in 2008, with 2 frozen cubs being found in 2017, 2015, and another one found in 2017. Seems to be related to each other. Well, not related to each other, but not the same. But all these kind of mummified cubs, so we do have a pretty good idea of what these guys look like. And we've also got a Homotherium mummy, so that's one of the really cool things that we get. Yeah, really, really awesome. Definitely a big fan of these guys. Great Cakes Mod, always doing an awesome job. So that's the Eurasian cave lion. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Mosh cave lion, or Panthera fossilaris. And you'll be surprised how big these guys are. So we'll talk about Panthera fossilaris, or Panthera leo, or Panthera splaya fossilaris. Here he is, right there. I think that must be the male. Here he is, big boy. Come on, why are you not working? It's alright. Anyway, so Panthera fossilaris, also known as Panthera leo fossilaris or Panthera splaya fossilaris. These guys are another extinct species. They were historically considered a subspecies of the modern lion. They're also currently either considered to be a chronospecies or ancestral species to the cave lion, or a subspecies of the cave lion. And compared to later Panthera splaya specimens, these guys would tend to be quite a bit larger, so that's where they kind of get the name from. And they were thought to be up to about 400 to 500 kilograms, or between 880 to 1100 pounds, and comparable in size to most of the larger saber-toothed cats like Smilodon populata, so making it one of the largest land predators of all time and one of the largest cats. So it's quite interesting. So it was first described by Wilhelm von Reschke in 1906 near Germany, and as I mentioned, it was historically called a modern lion, and the taxonomy, all that happened there. A 2022 study concluded that these guys are a chronospecies, so these lineages would have kind of evolved into each other. So Fossilaris would have become Splaya, and potentially an early population of them, or an early population of Fossilaris would have become Atrox, or the American cave lion. So as mentioned before, the lion lineage occurred in Africa and then spread into the early Middle Pleistocene. The earliest confirmed records of Fossilaris come from England about 700,000 years ago, with some coming in about 600,000 years ago, with recent nuclear evidence suggesting that they would have split off completely from each other about 500,000 years ago. The arrival of, we already mentioned that with as well. In terms of remains, they were larger than modern lions and among the largest known cats of all time, which is always quite interesting. The largest specimens just have a body length of about 2.5 to 2.9 meters, or about 8.2 to 9.5 feet, and a shoulder height of 1.4 to 1.5 meters, or about 4'6" to 4'9" in body mass, and about 400 to 500 kilograms. And skeletal remains of Fossilaris from Siberia measure larger than those of Central Europe, and compared to its descendant, Fossilaris had a slightly wider muzzle and nasal region in the skull, though its prostorbital and mastoid were narrower, the eye sockets were smaller, the bulbae were less inflated, the canine teeth were more narrow and less flattened, the incisors were smaller, so lots of little differences that suggest they were definitely a different species as well, so that's quite interesting in that regard. In terms of psychology, during the Middle Pleistocene, they were likely considered a dominant apex predator and likely to disturb other species from carcasses. And herbivores that would have coexisted with. At the time, the world was still quite a bit warmer, so we're still in the Ice Age, but it probably lived during a few interglacials and would have preyed upon things like hippopotamus, Stephyrhinus, such as Merck's rhinos and the narrow-nosed rhinos, so European rhinos, straight-tusked elephants, moose, steppe bison, red deer, roe deer, and fallow deer. But sympathetic predators that would have lived with included brown bears, wolves, cave hyenas, the large saber-toothed cat Homotherium, European leopards, and the quote-unquote European jaguar. And the only evidence of human interaction with Fossilaris comes from marine isotope stage 9 in Spain, where a specimen of Panthera fossilaris had cut marks that were thought to have been produced by ancient humans, and cutting them up and making sure that they are doing things with them. I don't know what they did. They seem to have butchered them for their flesh, but, humans do all sorts of weird things. Here you can see the female here. And we'll have a look at the cubs for a moment, because we didn't really get that much of a chance to look at the cubs. So this, in the game, it's called the Moashk lion, so that's kind of based on one of the specimens. But if you go into the, of course, the Zoopedia, it's called fossilaris. So we'll have a little bit more of a look at these guys, because they're quite cute little boys. They're very, very cute. We'll have a look at the Zoopedia as well, so let's see what other information we can get. So you can see that wide range of fossilaris. Close related and probably ancestral to the American lion. Kind of mentioned that, considering they are about the same size of a American lion that could have just, you know, they could have got down south and then become the American lion. A 1.5 centimeter jaw from the Ovaltine cave show a striking comparison. Italy, yeah, we kind of already mentioned a lot of these ones, and no species enrichment. So yeah, I wonder what's not working with that. My thing's being a bit annoying. But anyway, really great to see these guys. So these mods, you know, the last 4 species all done by Great Cakes, and so was the Iberian owl. And then we had, you know, the fish was done by Cladosictis, the lyre tail, and the Mangabey was done by Mangabey, not Mangabey, was done by Mangabey. So I'm going to try and zoom out. Don't know what's up with that. It was working before, but not anymore. Oh, that's alright. We'll hang out over here. We'll watch these lions. So thank you for Mega Kebab. Thank you for making those. Thank you, Cladosictis, and thank you, Great Cakes, for all these wonderful mods. The 5 mods that you made, you've done really awesome. So, yeah, I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to get little bell icons to get notified of anything. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.